destroy Texas lakes and ruin fishing.
Oh, yeah, that's my thing.
And that would be why boaters, fishermen, and skiers hate you.
Yep, but they do give me rides from lake to lake.
Folks, giant salvinia clings to boats, trailers, and gear, so remove even the smallest piece and put it in the trash.
Don't tell them that!
Hello, giant salvinia. Goodbye, Texas lakes. A message from Texas Parks and Wildlife.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or over on our various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We have had some technical difficulties around here. Y'all may have heard that a little bit towards the end of our show yesterday. So we have a bit of a workaround for the calls today because, oh, you bet your butt we're going to figure out a way to make calls happen somehow. So if you're calling into our usual phone line, that one there that we talked about at the top of the show, still apparently having some issues. But ironically enough, we have a workaround for it that involves us calling you back from that line because some of the audio we're still getting there is a little bit fuzzy, muddy, messy. But we'll try it the best we can here. I know we had some off there, but in any case, the main line that we're going to try to have you all on, we'll tell you, we'll take that call in a second here and see how the tubes and the Googles are feeling today, because I think they're very connected in this case. But we'll be talking about a lot of things today as much as possible. The line that we're going to have you all call into, though, actually for this show, when we got up on screen, 915-351-5440. Temporary workaround. And you'll just need to have your name and phone number ready when you call into that. And then we'll actually be calling you back, because the way the calls work, again, if I knew how all these systems worked, I would sell the manual to it and be a millionaire. So in the meantime, as we are just these humans dealing with these issues, we'll get through them as best we can. And just one thing I wanted to get to before we try delving back into the calls here today. Again, the number we will be doing today, 915-351-5440, the one you can try to get at us best with. We'll still be taking all the comments and calls we can throughout both hours of the program here, and maybe if something's been worked, we'll change what we're saying there. But I just have to delve into something that we mentioned very briefly on the show yesterday, that there were some apparent issues going on in Juarez, and did not know the half of it at the time, to be perfectly honest with you. We were talking about some of the recent reporting from El Paso Matters about water issues, water supply issues, and to my understanding, that is still very much the case with shortages and water supplies just not working as expected. But as you all may have heard or even seen coming right across the border there, because in some cases, I know smoke and other things could be seen, essentially a gang riot that started in one of the Juarez state prisons, one of the Cerezos, was, a serious incident happening there, but that then spilled out into the streets of Juarez, not necessarily from directly the prison itself, but rather affiliated gang members after that attack was happening and progressing, leading to violence on the streets of Juarez going on during and immediately after our program yesterday. And the fact that this happened, Cerezo Numero 3 was specifically the state prison that this happened in, that the riot started in, at least 2 inmates dying as part of that. But then the violence continuing again, spilling out into the streets of Juarez as the gangs affiliated with those inside the prison, continuing the violence, including, and very specifically and difficult for our work family here today, targeting random civilians on the street, apparently, businesses, burning some, blocking areas, and at least in one case, actually killing a radio crew in Juarez that was out there doing a very, very similarly to, as I have often myself been out there on the streets, promoting a business, doing radio call-ins, and killing, to my understanding, as of last count, at least 3 members of the radio crew there. So hitting kind of very personally here today, and definitely not good things that are happening there. on Braslin and saying that Juarez has returned to the good old days where people got killed on a daily basis. I'm not even going to talk about the glibness of that because, I mean, we certainly have seen plenty of violence in there previously, but this almost feels to another level. Not that any level of crime or killings is particularly acceptable, but the fact that this was not even for a purpose, like extortion, not a good purpose by any means, but the fact that this was widespread, random, and even the state and federal government telling people to stay inside their homes as the violence continues to spread, the total amount dead left at least 11 as of this. And I frankly don't have much confidence that that won't increase. So as much as you can, thoughts and prayers for those are, for many people, friends, relatives, and neighbors just south of the border there for us as we see this latest outbreak of violence and the senseless nature of it. I mean, it's almost hard to comprehend and talk, but I know our news partners over at KFOX 14 and many others in the region talking about that. I mean, there's even instances where they fired randomly into a business where people were just standing around. Actually, it looks very much like as it was a pizza place at Little Caesars Pizza. People just out and about their days. So as unconscionable as this violence always is, the senseless nature of this, I guess, is particularly getting to me here today. And so we have a lot we'll be talking about, but I would have been incredibly remiss if I didn't at least mention that and what has been very much weighing on me essentially since the end of our show yesterday here. So we are still doing that free-for-all Friday here. Even the president of Mexico, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, AMLO, speaking about that they attacked the civilian innocent population like a sort of revenge. It wasn't just a clash between two groups, but it got to the point in which they began to shoot civilians, innocent people. That is the most unfortunate thing in this affair. And then 10 people arrested in connection to the shootings and the fires, some who were trying to flee through the airport even at 1 a.m. today, and got into a gunfight with municipal and federal police and state police, I do believe, there. And yeah, it was actually 4 employees of the Mega Radio, according to our news partners over there at KFOX 14, killed during a live promotional event outside of business. Again, a circumstance I have, in the being outside of a business and promoting it on the radio, circumstance I have often found myself in. And so these stark realities of not too far away from us here, even at the station, very much weighing on our radio family here today. So that's just one major set of things, very top of mind here today, but we are still doing Friday as we usually do because there's a lot to talk about here. This one just weighing incredibly heavily on me. Trying to get that phone line here again. We are trying out primarily the backup here. That number again, 915-351-5440. Just be ready to give your name and number as we'll have to try to do some things. But we're trying out one call on the line here. We do have Joe on the west side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, that's too bad what's happening in Mexico. You know, I have a lot of relatives and I have friends in Juarez, a lot of friends in Juarez.
Absolutely.
And this is just awful what's happening. But before, you know, these characters from Northeast El Paso start calling in and blaming it on Trump, I'd like to blame it on the Democrats. The Democrat policies are causing a lot of this, you know, with their open borders and stuff. They're fighting, the people are fighting, the cartels are fighting for control. But that's not what it called about. It called about something else. It called about, and I like to talk about history. I'm not a historian, but I like to talk about history. And history is important, especially what's happening right now. And I want to say that inventing history is very easy. Studying history is very hard. And I mean, you know, and I had called before and talked about involuntary servitude. Or slavery. And not too long ago, Kamala Harris mentioned that there was slavery in this country for about 400 years, and she was almost, you know, correct. You know, from 1776, when this country was started, to when slavery ended in 1865, it was about 90 some years, about 89 years. I mean, that's how long, you know, this country had slaves. But slavery didn't stop there. Slavery continued into the 1900s. And it wasn't black slaves. It was white slaves. There was a lot of white slavery. And it was done under the auspices of, involuntary servitude, which is total force. These people were treated miserably. As a matter of fact, scholars believe that at least between the people that came in the 1700s and from the 1600s on to the 1900s from Europe, they predict that it was about out of 10 that came here, 6 of them died. You know, they were treated so harshly on the trip here, and then when they got here by their masters. And I'm talking about white slaves. Now, slavery has been monopolized by the Democrats, Hollywood, and some elitists. And anytime you talk about slavery, if you say slaves built the pyramids, right away they say, see, black slaves built the pyramid. If you say slaves built the White House, right away here, black slaves built the White House. It's not necessarily true. There was a lot of white people that were doing that too. As a matter of fact, Benjamin Franklin talked about it. The other thing is that involuntary servitude, there was a lot of people from Britain, from Germany, Ireland, Portuguese, Spanish, and they were treated really bad when they came here. Whereas a black ship that came here, let's say in the 1600s, it had maybe about 200 slaves, and they were treated well. They were treated okay because they were going to be sold as merchandise. When white people came here, there was like 400, maybe 500 in a boat, in a ship. That was a lot of people. And a lot of people died on those trips. A lot of them died on the ships. And the reason that they were treated badly was because they weren't merchandise. You know, they were barely paying for the trip to get here. So when we talk about slavery, and I think that's why a lot of people, especially a lot of black people, are very angry at white people, because they say that they were slaves, you know, they were slaves to white people. And it wasn't exactly correct. Everybody was a slave to somebody at one time or another. As a matter of fact, there was more white slaves. And I mentioned this before. In 1776, there was about 2 million people in this country. 100,000 were slaves. The other half of the 2 million, about 1 million, were white slaves under the auspices of involuntary servitude. That's why when they wrote the amendment to the Constitution doing away with slavery, they didn't just say slavery. They say neither slavery nor involuntary servitude. Now, these guys, these white people, even though they were treated so badly and everything, they went on to fight in the Revolutionary War, in the Civil War, and they were the ones that actually were the people that were sent, that started the Underground Railroad. You know, they were trying to get the white people out of the South and send them to the North, because that's the way they were being treated by Southerners. So, I mean, now we have a problem that blacks are angry at white people. And they're victimizing white people, Hispanics, Asians, and blacks, and blacks too. And you see it on television all the time, where Hispanics are being, especially on the Mexican channels or the Spanish channels, you see all this that's happening to Hispanics, California and other places, where they're being victimized by blacks. And I think this is all due to the misrepresentation that the Democrats have caused. The media has caused it, and Hollywood. They promote hatred of white people by promoting a false narrative, blaming all whites for slavery.
I mean, yeah, blaming literally everyone of a certain ethnic group for the actions of even a minority of it is a form of racism in its own. It's stereotyping at the very least. But I'm also going to draw a very fine line here that, yes, those that were not being paid for their labor and did not have a choice in the matter for a certain period of time certainly did cross broad categories, but I'm going to draw a very fine line between part of what you're talking about there, involuntary servitude, either those in prisons or as was more widely common within the pre-colonial era, the country or the colonial era here in the United States, as well as other places, of indentured servitude versus chattel slavery. Because if you're going to get into the historical aspects of it, a very specific thing about, even involuntary servitude was the racial nature of it, but also the non-generational nature of it. There was, at least not that I'm generally aware of, at the very least not in the general sense, the same amount of heritage of slavery attached to the involuntary servitude. Yes, people came here with that. I'm going to dispute you on the idea that there weren't these packed full ships of slaves, given that there are also documented incidents of people being thrown overboard because they're running out of food, water, etc. for them. So I'm not going to follow you on that line of reasoning that these were by any means any cushier than any other form of transport that were happening at that point in time here, because also one very much that has been pointed out about slavery throughout history is that one very, very specific feature of the way it happened in the pre-modern era, including leading up to the Civil War, rather after the Revolutionary War here in this country, was the, again, racial nature of it. That it was not that anyone could be a slave, as was seen in features of, like, say, the Roman Empire, or it's even referenced within biblical texts. It was that the nature of your skin color was the very definition of it. And there were instances of also people being, even because of their skin color, stolen back into slavery. And even though they claimed that they were free, do you have documents to prove it? Or we're not going to believe you because of insert many insults here. So I know we're having a little bit of some of those issues on the phone line there. We're trying to work through that here, but we got another way that we're trying to deal with the phone lines here. So if we're going to try out some more of that here after this break here. But again, as much as any involuntary servitude, involuntary labor, and why some of those parts of the 13th and 14th Amendments that reference except as punishment for a crime, I still have some issues with, because we still sometimes see, dealt with that. I also just don't find it useful to say, as much as like whenever someone is having issues in their life, well, other people have it worse, so you shouldn't feel that bad about it. That is a bunch of bull hockey. There's other words I want to use there, but I super can't. But the idea that, well, someone else's suffering was worse, therefore your suffering isn't valid. It's not as valid, really. You're not the most absolute suffering here. So, yeah, I appreciate your standpoint on here, but I'm going to disagree with it in some significant ways there. We're due for that first break of the hour here already. Always surprised by the ways we end up going here. Having to try out something slightly different when it comes to the phone lines here. We're going to have you call into 915-351-5440, because we're trying to deal with those clicking issues, our way around it here. We're still taking those calls, taking those comments. A lot of people chiming in over on the social media already, so thanks for the point in the call. Got to take that next break right now. So coming out after this break, talking more about, well, everything today, because Free For All Friday is what we do and how we do it and how we go about it here. So again, that number we're doing for today, 915-351-5440. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On your El Paso freeways, 5 vehicles involved in a crash I-10 eastbound at Joe Battle Boulevard, and they're all off to the right. 54 Patriot southbound at Ellerthorpe. 2 motorcycles blocking the left shoulder, stay to the right. Global Reach is still quite a crawl southbound from Liberty Expressway down to Montana with a 25-minute delay. Paramedics are responding to a crash with injuries. Viscount eastbound at Sunmount Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
If you fail to understand the single concept about money and tech, you're going to miss out on the biggest opportunity. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Have you thought about getting dental implants? Has someone told you that implants cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a tooth? Here's something much better to think about. Affordable dental implants from 1995implants.com. The El Paso Dental Office, where beautiful, top-quality, long-lasting dental implants are as low as $1,995 per tooth. That price includes the implant, abutment, and crown, which many other places charge extra for. At 1995implants.com, we also offer a free consultation, free standard x-rays, and convenient financing. 1995implants.com. You're going to love your new smile, and your friends and family will be telling you how great you look. Best of all, your dental implants are very affordable if you come to 1995implants.com. For more information, see our website, 1995implants.com. That's 1995implants.com. Se habla español.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. Regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Search you make, every click you take, they'll be watching you.
Tired of companies like Google and Facebook watching everything you do online? There's actually a simple solution. DuckDuckGo. It's an all-in-one privacy app with a built-in private search engine, web browser, one-click data clearing, email protection, and more, all for free. Download the app today and get the most comprehensive privacy protection with the push of a button. DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in over there. Kathy Codry, RJ, James Radcliffe, Flaco Jimenez, John Brazelton, Robbie Flores, Ida Beza Gardner, and more. Dropping those likes and reacts, we do appreciate, particularly since it's one of the better ways as we're, trying to figure out a way of some of the technical difficulties with the phone line. We're still focused on that, as we are definitely doing usually here over on our social media. And for Friday, just Free-for-All Friday, still very important. We got to talk about a lot of issues going on here. So trying on the phone lines, we're going to try one more test with our phone line here, see if some of the monkeying around on the back end has been dealt with. If not, we got that backup number we're trying for right now. Just be ready to call in and give us your phone number, because we might have to call you back. Essentially part of what we're doing here. In any case, we're trying to make it as simple as possible, because I know we have certain expectations that we're doing our best to meet here for Friday here. But so the people also dropping those likes and reacts, we do appreciate Ione Graham, Robert Haynes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Ida Beza Gardner, and Flaco Jimenez do appreciate it here. And as always, our price watch warriors, RJ and Kathy, comparing prices at one of the big box stores here recently. They neither support nor detract from either of us. So mentioning comparing prices between the two of them, seeing what works here. But as we are doing that whole thing on Friday, I do believe we have Johnny in Central on the line here with us right now. So we're trying another call here. Johnny, thanks for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely here. What's on your mind?
I'm glad you pushed back on that last caller. I almost dropped my phone when I heard some of the things that he said about indentured servitude compared to chattel slavery.
Mm-hmm.
It blew my mind. It really did. But I don't want to spend time on it, but I know a whole lot about history, about slavery, compared to other people. And the black people to this day had nothing to do with hatred and anything like that, but they were really, really robbed of a lot of things: their heritage, their livelihoods. That's one reason why some of the black people did not ever get any thing from their forefathers and foremothers, because they were robbed. But that's another story. Let me get on to what I called about.
Fair enough.
The gentleman mentioned Trump for a minute, and I just want to kind of approach it another way.
Okay.
I try to educate myself, Andrew, by listening to all sides and reading all sides. What I mean by that, I listen to KTSM sometime a whole day starting in the morning, because this is why I'm understanding why a lot of people here in El Paso such biased attitudes, because I sense that they don't they don't listen to anything other than KTSM only, and they also don't view anything but Fox, because when I hear them come on with their sound bites, it tells me that all they've done is listen to one side of the spectrum, so to speak. I wish they would try to listen to other radio shows watch other TV shows, and just watch and listen. And like I said, I love KTSM. I told you earlier, I like listening.
Well, sure.
I like your weekend shows. I like your legal scholars. I like the people who help you. I just love it. But I also watch TV. I watch KTSM. I watch CBS, ABC, and I watch K-Fox. I watch Newsnight. I go down the line because I'm trying to hear both sides every time. I'm trying to get an idea. So when I do get around friends and everything or other people, I have something to think about. But some of your callers, I hate to say it, Andrew, but they are biased people. Trump. What bothers me about these people who believe Trump is the savior is this gentleman doesn't care. I'm sorry, I should not have called him a gentleman. He does not care about anybody but himself, period. And some of these people who supporting him, every time something goes wrong and he uses the word witch hunt, they just grab right onto it. It just boggles my mind. He does not care about it. I remember when he fired James Comey because his term is he doesn't want you to honor the Constitution and the government. He wants you to cater to him, honor him. And that's wrong right there. People don't go to the government to honor the president. They go there to honor the Constitution. But that's how he gets rid of a lot of people. He gets angry with them and they don't want to do what he says. And I was thinking about General Milley, the one that went out to the park with him that time when he was wanting to stand in front of the church and hold the Bible up there. General Milley was upset because he was telling him that your listeners should listen to this because you get it from other places. And when I bring up the things I'm talking about, it's something that I actually read. It's not something I heard. It's something that I know, and I do research on it. He wanted General Milley to shoot those people out in that park, those protesters. And General Milley was horrified. And he wanted General Kelly, who was one of his staff members in the White House, he was angry at him because he told General Milley that he wanted generals like Hitler, who looked up to him like Hitler. And General Kelly was shocked. And I've told you before in some of the other calls, I'm a member of the military. I don't like how he talk about the military, and he said that he wanted to. I remember this. Somebody mentioned the movie that Tom Cruise was in. I think it was the Valkyrie. Tom Cruise played Stauffenberg, and they tried to take out Hitler, but of course Trump wouldn't know anything about that. And let me go right on, and then I step back and let you talk. I'm kind of looking at some of my notes here. Again, I'm looking at what happened the last couple of days. It seemed like the people who cater to him, they find a way to accept any and everything. I'm really afraid that unless we get rid of somebody like him, I'm not even talking political. I'm talking about a person who loves himself, doesn't love anyone else, and just want to take over this country. I'm looking at the people up in the Congress, some of the people in the House and in the Senate. They're just cowards. Just like Liz Cheney's father says, he is a coward, and they're cowards too. And I'm really concerned about our country really going into another civil war. Your thoughts?
I'll say, I mean, that has been being talked about more than a little bit lately because, and I know it keeps coming up, and I think it probably will. Some very intelligent people I follow and listen to, I don't know if I mean, the analysis that I subscribe to most that do not see this necessarily as an inciting event, as there may have been people responding to that already, but more widespreadly talking about there. If we're looking at the potential for there being, I mean, there's most ways I subscribe to the ideas of this involve the idea of there being spectrums of conflict, that there's either not exactly absolute peace, but lack of conflict at the very least, or there being low intensity or growing intensity and then open conflict. So looking at it through that kind of a lens, that kind of a theory and understanding on this, it could already be argued that we are technically in a low intensity conflict. Now, conflict is not used strictly in the terms of battlefield here, which is one of the many reasons I eschew the use of the terminology of war, which others have greatly embraced, and I find myself disagreeing with that more and more. But talking about the idea of low intensity conflict or competition, often we have seen there be other political arenas, other even non-political arenas, up to and including violent arenas being used by those either in or seeking power to, well, move the needle in those ways here. So when I refer to that as moving the needle and accelerating, I see this as potentially an incident that, if not handled incredibly carefully going forward, and I'm not sure we've hit that, talking about, of course, the recent Mar-a-Lago raids and everything involved with that, not handled incredibly carefully and proved beyond the shadow of a doubt I do believe there are those that truly believe that the former president is an individual who can do no wrong. Good luck to them, because to say that any individual is anything but essentially human is essentially setting yourself up for massive disappointment, because it's never going to work out that way, at least on this earth, on this reality, in the way we know it and understand it here. This is by no means way defending or even detracting from that current situation. I want to know the facts as much as anyone else probably listening to this program here, because knowing exactly what has gone into this is very much going to color my response and how I think about it. But for the most part, I do see this, if not handled incredibly carefully, as potentially an accelerating factor, moving that needle ever so slightly, or maybe more than slightly, towards the idea of an actual true conflict. I have absolutely zero interest in seeing such a true conflict develop within my lifetime, within any of my children's, grandchildren, great-grandchildren's lifetime, in any way, shape, or form. Anyone who is clamoring for the idea of open conflict, open war, civil war, anything like that, I'm going to find myself incredibly opposed to, because I think that they have no clue what that is going to mean for us, this country, their lives. The idea that this can be done something as a weekend thing, something that you go out, or the way it was thought about even here in El Paso during the Mexican Revolution, as people would go to the tops of buildings and watch through binoculars or magnifying devices that what was going on, that conflict, that little ever so war in Juarez, and then of course they had to stop doing that because bullets were hitting the building. The idea that this can be done and not ruin just about everything is a fairy tale, plain and simple. The idea that we could have this great little war and be done with it, and that obviously the side that I agree with will be the one to triumph out there, that line of reasoning is just so full of foibles, hubris, and more that I can't even really begin to describe it. And anyone who is saying that, yeah, it'll be great, we'll just get rid of everyone we don't like, I mean, even those kind of fraught phrases bring up and conjure images of other people of similar things. I've been reading a lot about Pol Pot, and the fact that he managed to die in ripe old age ticks me off more than just about anything I've read recently. I mean, there are varying degrees of tickness, but that one does, because the idea of a person like that saying that, we're going to change, are going to make this country completely better, change everything about it, bring it back down to its roots, back down to its core, and the millions of people that died from the Khmer Rouge and the progression of it, I'm going to say that there have been similar kinds of statements made that I've been reading from there, that those have been talking about it, saying that, no, this is an inciting incident and we got to deal with this now, kind of thing. The legal systems, I do not feel, have failed. I feel that there are problems with it. Public confidence in them has definitely been an issue for years now, literally. So this becoming in the vein of that, I'm not sure if that's going to work out that well, unless it's handled incredibly delicately, and I'm, again, not sure we have hit that. But as we deal with these serious issues and we look at what that can look like just south of our city here today, and even going on into today, where now just barely authorities are saying that, yes, people can feel free to go back out on the streets as this violence has been quelled. We have often talked about the comparisons between, say, our city and Juarez in this. So it's surprisingly, stupidly poignant today that this has been happening, because if that is what you want in life, that is exactly the path you should pursue. If you want this to be where random violence, random killings, random civilians killed in the street, because no war is clean. There has never been a war that has only killed the combatants, directly or indirectly, in human history, full stop. I have full confidence in that statement. So anyone truly calling for it, clamoring for it, or hoping it'll happen, I cannot understand your standpoint, and I hope you find a reason to understand why it may be that wrong. Anyway, we got to take that next break right now. Still experimenting with the phone line here. I do appreciate the point and the call. We're still working on the phone line, trying to make some things to work on it here. We'll get to more calls in line, trying to go back to the original one here. Still got some issues with it, but definitely cleaner. That number to call, again, 915-351-5429, 915-351. Oh, sorry. No, that's don't call that number. Number 1-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. That's another one of the backup numbers we were considering here. So regular number, regular line, regular thing we're trying to do here on Friday, which is free for all Friday, taking all of your comments and calls as much as we can. So that number again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update. A gang riot inside a border prison that left 2 inmates dead quickly spread to the streets of Juarez. The federal government's security undersecretary says the violence started inside the state prison just after 1 in the afternoon yesterday when members of the Mexicals gang attacked members of the rival Chapos. 2 inmates were killed and 20 others were injured. Then suspected gang members outside the prison started burning businesses and shooting civilians in Juarez, including 4 employees of a radio station making a promotional appearance at a business. 6 of the suspects were arrested at the Juarez airport this morning, where there was a shootout between the suspects and law enforcement. City leaders then took to social media to ask citizens of Juarez to not leave their homes. The show Chavos Rucos Viviendo de Noche, set to perform at the El Paso County Coliseum, has subsequently been canceled due to the recent crime in Juarez. The show was set for Saturday at 8 p.m. Anyone who purchased a ticket will receive a refund. I'm Erica Castillo with your KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On I-10 eastbound at Joe Battle, a multi-vehicle accident involving 5 vehicles. They're all off to the right. Wrestler Drive southbound at Pitt, an injury accident. EMT's being dispatched now. On Global Reach southbound, it is a parking lot just stopped traffic with 35-minute delays. You might take Liberty Expressway. And Gateway Boulevard southbound lanes at East Yandell still closed from that earlier sinkhole this week. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Mother Nature is cutting us some slack this weekend. What does that mean? That means drier air moving back in. Not completely dry, but we're getting close with only an isolated chance for some showers and storms, not only tonight, but also through the start of next week. Just keep in mind that drier air translates to hotter temperatures as well. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blind shades and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop Blindster today and save big. Blindster.com.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso. Weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you. Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And let's talk El Paso.
Instantaneous communication across the globe is an expectation and has been for nearly 2 decades. But it hasn't always been this way. It used to take weeks or months. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Stay informed at kcsmradio.com. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We've gone in depth and harder than I thought on a few subjects here today already, and some of the, of course, the big day's news we got going on here, including the events going on over there in Juarez. A lot of comments coming in. Stephen Christopher, RJ, Kathy Codry, James Radcliffe, Ion Grimm, Eric Von Holstein Rathlow, John Browson, if I didn't say that already, Roger D. Cleops. Let me know how to say that correctly if I'm not. Also, chiming in, liking, sharing, reacting, all those things we appreciate. Calvin Williams, Ion Graham, Robert Haynes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Ida Beza Gardner, and Flaco Jimenez. And yeah, a lot of commentary coming in, including Stephen Christopher saying, hoping I'm right, and quoting him directly, I think the pushing the needle is the best way to describe it. It's sad to think that this goes bad. We will probably be looking at one of the two ultimate outcomes, civil war or secession. The divide in the country has been getting worse for the last 14 years, and it's getting worse every day. I'm not sure if I entirely agree with the idea of there being an inviolable divide, this growing chasm that is impossible to span, just because, I mean, the history of this country and my family are terminally intertwined, and the idea of it just failing because, well, we just can't find a way to get along, just, it sounds so trite and almost childish. I'm not blaming you, Stephen, there by any means for that. It just brings it up to mind here for me, which is why I think it is going to take a number of people making a concerted effort to step away from the edge. But whether or not we have those kind of people in power and office, let me just say that the American government has never relied on the ability or the movement of one man, one group, even one party. It has required all of us, literally everyone involved with the government, and having faith and in the ability of the American experiment to continue on in order for it to be able to do so. And with that is being lost, that is the point in which I truly think we will find ourselves lost beyond. Anyway, more comments coming in, but we're trying again that phone line. Think it's working for the most part here. So we're going to try the regular phone line. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Nate on the east side here with us right now. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And God bless you, Andrew, for your wonderful program and opportunity to be here for the next minute. So I just want to bring out real briefly. I want to reflect back on the gentleman that spoke about the slavery and marital things like that. And I tell you, if that person feels that they got the right
Nate, are you there?
Because to sell the principle that, to say, if a person has been in prison, we know that statistically more than likely that person is going to be a repeated offender. Something goes on psychologically when things happen to you. We can take it the next step further. If you study statistics in children who often are abused, one way, form, or fashion, or many they were more than likely to grow up troubled. They become part of our system into the most troubling society. Anyone out there that knows what I'm talking about can relate to one of my statistics will show that. So it appeared to me he was trying to like the pitch like one like the who had it the worst or just with any kind of neglect or abuse and equal the sum of a negative thing. And I just want to share that I grew up in a lot of that. Okay, and I lived my ancestors did one thing. I won't just leave it. I'm not the expert on it, but I've seen a lot of things in this lifetime, and certainly I want to just say that any wrong is wrong, which can equal to something coming out bad. The next quick thing is we're looking at what is going on, whether it be civil war or not, things like that. I tell people that it is up to us to make a difference, but to make a difference, we have to be unified. I have no hope that everybody's going to be the same, look the same, but there's some principles of a family, of a baseball team, or a scout troop, or a school, or a university, whatever that's going to hold together. Have to have a core principle. We are losing that core principle, and when we lose that core principle, that principle to me it means it's every person for themselves, and they start to make up their own little sub rules. So we are not functioning as we can function as that shining star on the hill. It's not perfect, but we have a great nation. I haven't seen everything, but I've traveled throughout the world. Not because I was rich, I was in the military, but I've seen a lot of countries that, oh my God, we would be shocked if people would go there and see the state of the way people live. And I just ask us to hold true to that because of all this turbulence going on. It's up to us as individuals to be convinced. I know what is right from wrong. And heed to that and be a good ambassador of that. And I don't think it's never too late to start doing that. But if we are biting into these little subgroups and everything there, we're only going to make matters worse. And anything, I'm talking about anything is possible when it gets to that point. When it's dog eat dog, anything can go down. So thank you for those couple of minutes to Andrew. I appreciate it. Now, so pass back the phone to for you and others that may want to speak.
Absolutely. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it here. Again, still working on that phone line. Think it's getting a bit better, but still got a couple issues on it, to the point where I again, just you got me historically thinking today with all these references to the past and the way things were. I mean, the rule of law is probably the single most important concept that has existed in the modern sense. And the way I'm saying that is particularly since the idea that no one is above the law, that laws apply to everyone equally, even if we have some issues with that potentially. What I mean to that is I compare, say, what is going on today and the way we live today, even if we are increasing concern about things, with the way it used to be. I've been, among the many things I end up reading, you're getting a little bit of my reading list here today more than I intended, was reading up on the highwaymen of Great Britain, or even just England before it became the Great Britain and UK that it was, and the way that you weren't safe on the roads, going anywhere, doing anything. If it wasn't in an armed convoy or completely incognito, you were taking your life on your hands the moment you moved anywhere. And how completely, not even just foreign, but inconscionable that would be today. The idea of someone being stopped and robbed on the roadways today would be, I mean, it just doesn't really happen that way. The idea of it being a possibility with any leverage, I mean, I'm sure there are one-offs and, people laying traps and things, but as just a fact of life, we would consider that wholly unacceptable from our modern standpoint. And the idea of that being completely unacceptable, it's not exactly as if there is surveillance or police, law enforcement, anyone enforcing that everywhere. It's a collective will that we have and continue to express to make that be the case, make that happen. And with when we lack that, when we have people, I'm not exactly sure whether rot truly starts top down or bottom up, but it seems to be in some cases happening both ways. And what I mean by that is the people who say that, well, sure, we've got these rules, but I ultimately want what I want. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it, whether it be in personal business dealings or in government. As we get closer to in violating that inviolable concept, we are finding ourselves more and more fraught. And I think that's what people more than not. I mean, sure, we've got political differences that come up decent amount, but that idea that, well, my will is greater for yours and therefore I'll get what I want, as opposed to some very basic concept of, say, human rights, humanity, inalienable rights granted by our creator. Those concepts, as we whittle away at them ever so more, I think we find ourselves in a much more fraught kind of way here. RJ saying sounds like parts of Mexico and the cartel feudal system. Yeah, there's a reason that I know there's a lot of like time travel fantasies out there. Oh, I want to go back and see medieval England. I sure as hell don't. Going anywhere that had before air conditioning. I mean, sure, I've spent multiple weeks on purpose out in the wilderness, but I don't want to live there necessarily. So, I mean, those and among other things, a lot of reasons definitely wouldn't want not to. But tell you what, we got to take that next break right now, and we'll be coming back probably for a short segment. So trying to still get those, those calls and everything else going here. So still got that phone line, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. More or less up where it's being worked on. I think some of the things you're hearing are the wrenches being swung in the back. But in any case, back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the I-10 eastbound at Joe Battle, a multi-vehicle accident, 5 vehicles total, all off to the right from that earlier crash, and traffic moving pretty well there. Global Reach, not so much. Southbound from Liberty Expressway down to Montana Avenue, it's a 30-minute delay. Stop and go traffic. Wrestler Drive southbound at Pitt, an injury accident. And Gateway Boulevard southbound at East Yandale still closed. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster. Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop Blindster today and save big. Blindster.com.
Clown Parade is an anthology comedy podcast series presented by Will Ferrell, Bowen Yang, and Matt Rogers. Each month, hear a fresh comedic talent create a brand new podcast format hosted by an original character of their own creation in the spirit of the Ron Burgundy podcast.
What I want you guys to produce are multiple podcasts. It's one podcast called Clown Parade, a anthological character piece carefully curated by culturistas.
Listen to Clown Parade on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
For more than 20 years, the Window Depot has provided the best price and the biggest inventory on in-stock vinyl windows. And now the Window Depot is more than a window store, offering homeowners and contractors a one-stop warehouse full of interior and exterior doors, granite and quartz countertops, in-stock cabinetry, and flooring and tile to finish your project. Their team of professionals will help with everything from free kitchen design to custom orders from leading manufacturers like Milgard and Geldwin. Order online or find a location near you at thewindowdepot.com.
Get ready for the smartest bundle in streaming. 6 streaming services for the intellectually curious. Featuring Curiosity Stream with the best collection of documentary films and TV shows. Psalm TV and great stories from the world of wine. Tastemade for the fun side of food and travel. Topic with the best thrillers and crime stories. And so much more. From nature to history, technology to food, mystery to adventure. Get 6 streaming services for one low price. At less than $6 a month, it's the best deal in streaming. Learn more and sign up now at smartbundle.com.
You know audio memory lasts 6 times longer than visual memory? That's why businesses advertise with iHeartMedia, the #1 audio company in the country. Reach consumers with radio, podcasting, streaming, and more. Make your business a household name and visit iHeartAdvertising.com or call 844-BUY-RADIO. Grow your reach, grow your business. Call iHeartMedia today. Visit iHeartAdvertising.com or call 844-BUY-RADIO.
Harley-Davidson is an iconic American brand with an iconic American backstory. To hear it, be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. I think we got most of the technical issues dealt with here now. I know that the phrase sometimes being used in previous eras was steam-powered radio. We're still in definitely the same studio where that has previously been said here, so take that for what it's worth. We do, of course, have that phone line open, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Going to reset here for the top of the hour here as we got very in-depth on some of these subjects here, even as we're also trying to deal with some of the issues. Not all the workarounds work, but some of them seem to be. So, in any case, we got the quote calls on the line. A lot of comments coming in, including the idea of some being above the law. Yeah, I don't care who we're talking about. The idea of anyone being above the law is one I'm going to find myself very opposed to because, again, as has been previously said, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that doesn't just mean an injustice being done to you, but a lack of justice being to someone else can be equally a part of it. Because sure, you may think, once or twice, what does it matter? I've got the power. What does it matter? But it does matter because in aggregate, that whole concept, rule of law, only is as powerful as strongly it exists in the minds of each and every person who believes in it and is willing to see it through here. So a lot of comments coming in. We'll get back to that more on the phone line after this break. Here at the top of the hour news and all that good stuff. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here in the second hour, 5 o'clock hour coming up here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the I-10 eastbound at Joe Battle, a multi-vehicle accident, 5 vehicles total, all off to the right from that earlier crash, and traffic moving pretty well there. Global Reach, not so much. Southbound from Liberty Expressway down to Montana Avenue, it's a 30-minute delay. Stop-and-go traffic. Wrestler Drive southbound at Pitt, an injury accident. And Gateway Boulevard southbound at East Yandale, still closed. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hello? Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean, Mike. Gotta go.
Yee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-01.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The search warrant behind the FBI raid on former President Trump's home is now unsealed. White House correspondent John Decker lays out the charges.
These are very serious crimes that the Department of Justice, the FBI, is accusing the president of violating. We're talking about removal or destruction of records.
The warrant claims Trump was under investigation for potential Espionage Act violations. It went on to claim Trump had top secret documents and photos. The House is sending a bill called the Inflation Reduction Act to President Biden's desk. Democrats pushed the bill through after it narrowly passed the Senate last weekend. The president has previously said the legislation will help lower the cost of prescription drugs, health insurance, and energy costs. During debate on the House floor, Democrat Mark Pocan of Wisconsin said his party is putting people over politics with the bill. Over 7,000 migrants captured at the Texas-Mexico border are in either Washington, D.C. or New York City. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says the illegal immigrant transports are part of Operation Lone Star, the state's border security initiative. The Republican says sending the buses filled with migrants provides relief to overwhelmed border communities. COVID numbers are nowhere near where they were at the peak, but public health experts warn that the virus is still out there. Dr. John Hellerstedt heads the Texas Department of State Health Services.
The original virus was about as contagious as the flu. The current variants are about as contagious as measles and mumps, which are among the most contagious diseases we have.
He says viruses don't want to kill you, they want to reproduce. The Louisiana Supreme Court is rejecting an appeal by abortion providers on the state's trigger law. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The polio virus is being found in New York City wastewater samples, which suggests the virus is spreading in the city. Natalie Migliori reports.
New York State Health Commissioner Dr. Mary Bassett called the detection of the virus in New York City alarming but not surprising. She added, for every one case of polio that gives someone paralysis, hundreds more may be undetected. Federal officials have confirmed a team was sent to New York to investigate the only case reported in the state, which was found earlier this summer in an unvaccinated adult in Rockland County who did suffer paralysis. It's the first known case of polio in the U.S. in nearly a decade.
The Ukrainian president is briefing Pope Francis on Russia's invasion of his country. So said President Zelensky in a tweet thanking the Pope for his prayers. He emphasized the need for citizens to have support from spiritual leaders and to spread the news of the acts of horror Russia is committing in Ukraine. Family members of those who've died while in San Diego County Sheriff's Department custody have their day in court. Eddie McCoven has more.
Before a hearing in federal court Thursday, attorney Priya Kaul spoke out against the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, claiming nothing has changed in county jails since a scathing state audit on the high number of in-custody deaths was released earlier this year.
They continue to deflect responsibility. They continue to make empty promises without any real commitment to change.
An injunction was filed asking the court to order immediate action, including preventing drugs from entering county jails. The Sheriff's Department says it's made improvements in response to that state audit.
Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling are joining forces to star in a new film called The Fall Guy. The movie is an adaptation of the classic TV series of the same name, although plot details are currently unknown. The series from the 1980s starred Lee Majors and was about Hollywood stunt performers who moonlight as bounty hunters. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance at $1,000 and a trip to our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival. Text the nationwide keyword WIN to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's WIN to 200-200.
Keep listening for the next chance to win your way to our iHeartRadio Music Festival, September 23rd and 24th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
Tickets are on sale right now. AXS.com.
Stream it free on the CW app and CWTV.com.
Brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch to the network with more 5G bars in more places so you can experience your music whether you're streaming from home or from the front row. Plus, customers can get closer to the festival with VIP access, only from the leader in 5G coverage, T-Mobile.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
If you fail to understand the single concept about money and tech, you're going to miss out on the biggest opportunity. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is a leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days. Definitely up over on those: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv. Andrew J. Polk. Those are all the ways you can get at us there. And still got some issues with the system, with the phone lines. Doing the best we can, still taking them as much as possible here. Stay tuned for that as we get through it here. Again, the number to call if you want to dial in there is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in here. John Browse letting us know that the afternoon rains are starting out here. Yeah, I haven't heard it rumbling on the ceiling here yet, so it must not be that hard in our neck of the woods anyway. But a lot of comments coming in. Catherine Codry, Flaco Jimenez, James Ratcliffe, RJ, Stephen Christopher, and a whole lot more. Ion Grimm, Eric von Holstein Rathlau. Tim suggesting a little bit earlier, how about a convention of states to cast off this tyranny and give power back to the states, maybe even repeal the 17th Amendment. I have a lot of emotions about the 17th Amendment. For those that don't have their handy-dandy pocket constitution, which I have found very, very useful in many aspects of my life. And no, I am not actually being flippant about that. Even before this program, would often keep it around here, but making sure I'm reading my Roman numerals right here. The 17th Amendment, that the Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state elected by the people thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. This, I mean, it may not seem that revolutionary, considering that that's literally the way it's put in place. It is very different from the way it was initially envisioned within the base constitution, I will admit that, in which the essentially state legislators picked it. So I am never usually in a favor of there being less direct election representation by the people of a state here. Now, I know, sure, the idea of it, they elected electors, the representatives of their legislator, and they then picked them, but that's getting a little bit too far removed from the actual direct consequences to the voters here. Matt Olson saying instead term limits, and that's one that I have a lot of emotions about as well, I'll be honest with you. The idea of there being term limits, while it may do a lot in the interim and without any other action coming with it, to essentially empower lobbyists, because brand new swaths of people coming in regularly just make it even more ripe for that, because sure, it might not happen on every issue, but on most issues it will. And that's the real downside I see there. So unless we couple it with some serious, and I do mean serious, campaign finance reform, and, well, probably on, as paradoxical as this may sound, increasing the congressional staffing budgets of Congress and the Senate, I don't think we find ourselves maybe served for a little while because, again, as much as I dislike that idea, the idea of septa, octo, and even nonagenarian, it's not out of the question here, referring to 70s, 80s, and 90s, not to be ageist or anything, but the idea of that being the majority representation in our government, it just gives me pause. In any case, and now Mando Manganda over on the Twitch stream saying term limits do not have a good man or woman enough time to make meaningful change. Another argument to be made there. That's why I think that any one solution probably won't do it. Unfortunately, as we talk about with a lot of issues, comprehensive solutions, which are probably the most important and have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, at least in this current political climate, to be incredibly elusive. But let's get again back to those phone lines. So giving that the old college try, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Frankie and Masia on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
This is outrageous. This is unbelievable. Monstrous. Nothing but sheer, clear, monstrous mayhem by an overinflated Cheeto. That horrible individual that calls himself an American, get out. If he's an American, I'm Jesus Christ reincarnated. Give me a break. This moron is going to undo the, well, back up on that a minute. I told you guys once before, you cannot operate a democracy like we have when you've got so many ignorant jerks out there, poorly educated. His words. Donnie Dotard Cheeto loves the poorly educated. These Trump-supporting troglodytes, which, by the way, you have about 6 or 7 that normally call into your program, are the direct responsibility of this moron being the ex-president of the United States. I am so ticked about this guy going off. I can't even talk about it for quite a lot. It just blows my mind. That's what I want to say.
Okay, I think you're responding in general to what's been going on this week and the many related topics we've been having coming up on that and related calls, etc. But let me just say this. I'll be very interested in seeing the movement of this. I know that there's some more about the warrant being unsealed, things like that. Trying to read up as much on that as I can because, yes, it is very important, and what is actually progressing there. What will actually come out of it is even more important. The next steps that are being taken here, because as much as there is a strong possibility of, and very much focus, having been on previous, political aspects of it, on trying to, we've seen that go back and forth for literal years now, either during the Obama administration, the first Trump administration. The phrase is one-term presidency, and focusing on that have come from both sides of the aisle for a minute here. So I have no doubt that there is a lot of vested interest in seeing someone, particularly the former president, in being not able to or disposed to run, shall we say, again here. I've no doubt that that's a factor. At the same time, do not get me wrong, the idea that someone can do no wrong and that anyone would truly follow that, politicians are supposed to serve us. I just need to make that as a clear point. And if they're not, they're also supposed to be removed from office, whether being not voted or recalls or things like that. Don't think that outside of California, as much as I have issues with California, they've been the only ones really showing the will to do these recall efforts recently, because when's the last time you really heard of one, at least with any real force behind it? I feel like I've heard these kind of piecemeal small ones. So as much as they got a lot of other issues over there in California, I admire that one very limited aspect of them. But for the most part here, I do want to, that's why I want to follow this very closely. And again, I know there's a whole lot of then whataboutism and what about these other cases that come with this. Let me make it one thing other, just perfectly crystal clear. Anyone who was doing illegal things should be prosecuted for doing that, particularly at these levels. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you running a stop sign should absolutely be thrown in the slammer, but the idea of anything flying under the radar, under the rug, and therefore invalidates any other enforcement going on, no. It probably means there needs to be more enforcement in my mind. So, that's a part of it here, and I know there's a whole lot more that goes into it than just this here, but this is going to be a topic, I am sure, for many weeks to come.
All right, Andrew, I hear that. But this is not running a stop sign. This is not getting a speeding ticket. We've got some incontrollable moron that's upending the whole process of how we run this country. Democracy, you know as well as everybody else, the smart people, not the poorly educated that call in, recognize it's a very fragile form of government. The smallest thing can upend this thing. It requires intelligent people to ride herd on ensuring that we follow the rules and regulations. And this moron, this oversized, inflated Cheeto is totally opposite of the whole thing. And that's my comment. I want you to have a wonderful weekend.
You too as well. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there as well.
All right.
I mean, let me just say this. As much as we have gotten, and in a lot of the ways, with a lot of very upset people on very opposite sides of the spectrum here, talking about a lot of issues here, let me just say that it is entirely possible to have some very serious ideas and have very people in good faith come up with completely different ideas and solutions about how to go about them. That is not by in any inherent or stretch of the imagination a lack of intelligence, education, etc. on the part of any party therein, but reasonable people can disagree. That's a phrase, not said that often lately, that reasonable people can disagree and yet still come to some kind of consensus, common ground, joint action, etc. The fact and the idea, kind of what I was referring to earlier with that idea, I'm not sure if top-down or bottom-up, Rod, is our biggest problem here, because when we see it, if you want to talk about the top-down aspect of it, the propensity within our the federal government, pick a branch, really, legislative mostly, but then, of course, the interplay with the, of course, executive is definitely a part of it. This idea that we have to control everything or nothing can get done. Literally not how the American system was designed to be, and yet that has been the predominant way that major legislation, major appointments to office, actions by the Supreme Court can often be even read as a part of this. The idea if we go and control everything, nothing will get done, because that's what it's taken. The hyper-partisanship that we have and are experiencing is not a common feature, or at least not in the previous, even when we're talking about what the hell led up to the Civil War. Been reading up on that lately because some of the ways that compromises, the Missouri Compromise, Bleeding Kansas, all those kind of things, I've just felt propelled to read more about recently. Again, to add it to the reading list if you're following along with me. But the idea that these things are unavoidable and can't be overdone with, I think there have been a lot of people who have been making a lot of money, a lot of power, and that's why the whole conversation about term limits, as much as there was, John Browsland had said a little bit earlier that K Street writes and finances all legislation anyway. Congress no longer knows how to write laws. That's kind of a feature of a problem, and why term limits may not do us that well in that way, because sure, it takes experienced people to be able to do it, and why staffing might need to be increased. I mean, it is definitely a lot of interplay that comes out of this here. And people asking him to calm down with some of it here. And yes, we are a constitutional republic, but also democratically elect our representatives here, because we are neither a pure democracy nor a pure republic. So yeah, let's just get that argument out of the way, as we usually do. And sure, if you are wanting to quibble on the minor points, we can do that all day. But I think some of the larger issues are really, what are our goals? What do we want to happen out of this? And as much as the idea of, a lot of people bringing up the IRS agents and the 87,000 of them, the ammunition purchases and the job descriptions that have been posted, and yes, I have seen them, of the, carrying a firearm and the use of it here, certainly levels of concern. The idea of the hyperpartisanship continuing to a level where it is that whoever is in charge then goes against viciously and vociferously against their opponents, that's some serious third world stuff right there. Like, seriously, that's not even a hyperbole, but the way that it is done in, say, like, the remnants of the Congo and the countries that have come out of that, and the complete disruption that we saw there in some of the, those Southeast Asian countries I was talking about that have not had a great history of rule of law lately. That's why I still and will continue to posit that rule of law is probably the most important concept we have in our government this day, and anything that chips away at that, even in the smallest way, is, well, maybe not immediately a threat, but in aggregate, getting to be one here. Let's get to at least one more call before we hit that next break right now. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, Trump and the Republicans had a terrible, no good, very bad week. Ha ha! Karma Trumpers. Donald Trump is reaping the tons of bad karma he has sown. And of course, Trump's winning until you're weary week started with Mara Loser being raided by the FBI on Monday. Unprecedented, historical. And the FBI recovered 12 boxes of stolen government property, national security, and nuclear secrets at Mar-a-Lago. Previously, they had recovered 15 boxes, some of which ended up having national security secrets in them that hadn't been declassified. So the National Archives notified the FBI. Then on Tuesday, the Federal Appeals Court upheld the right of a House committee to get Trump's tax returns. Now, I recall Trump, when he was running for the presidency, saying that he would release his income tax return. That's what he told the American people. But then he lied, and he never released them, and he fought their release for the rest of his presidency. Why would anyone other than a lemming in his cult believe him after that?
I mean, if you're really asking why anyone voted for Donald Trump, I mean, that seems to be the core question you keep coming to here, and then positing the idea that no one reasonably could have possibly done that. I mean, I feel like we've done this more than a few circles here, and I'm surprised and not surprised that you're literally laughing at the no good, very bad week, because seriously, if you're positing that these things are as awful as you are even describing them, the idea of laughing at them, seriously, because of the schadenfreude that comes with this, you enjoying the pain and suffering of someone else, I need you to realize something for me real quick. The reason that I talk about it the way that I do and say that I will be, yes, following this investigation very closely is not because, I can't wait to see what happens to the people I don't like or anything along those spectrum. I look at the politicians, the elected officials, the local leaders, etc., those that we get to vote for and put on our ballot, not because I like that guy or I don't like that guy. I want bad things to happen to him, and all the bad things in the world happen to you and only you. Like, that is such, I want to get into approaching one of those mindsets that I'm just incapable of understanding. Because, sure, I may use the phrase, it would be funny if it weren't true. The true part of that is that these are very real situations. If there has been serious breaches of national security, I want to know about it. If there have been serious issues causing there to be things that are going to affect us in our daily lives, I want to know about it. So the idea of laughing about it and not looking at what the investigation has come out of, and that, yes, it is the power of a president, absolutely, to declassify information, but the power of it is not an infinite power that exists forever. And so if it was not done in office and could not have been done, does not apply clearly afterwards. That's why I will be looking at this investigation, and why constantly I have said I want the investigation. I want the answers. I want to know what happens. So literally just laughing about it is, I guess I don't have a whole lot of time for that here today, as much as we've done it a whole lot this week. We're going to take that next break right now in any case. So thank you for the point in the call for what it's worth here. That number to call is 915-544-5876. Seems like we've resolved those issues. So if you were calling in, trying to call on the other line any other way, go ahead and call us there. Again, our regular phone number, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On your El Paso freeways, I-10 eastbound at Hawkins, an accident reported with slowing. 5-minute delays back to the 54 Patriot. I-10 eastbound at Joe Battle, that earlier crash involving 5 vehicles is cleared. Global Reach has got a half-hour delay southbound from Liberty Expressway down to Montana Avenue. And Gateway South at East Yandell still closed due to the sinkhole repair. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
Do we need more business people in politics? I'll ask Oklahoma's Governor Kevin Stitt, a successful businessman, that question. Listen to The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday and throughout the week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline, so I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. We are cobbled together with duct tape and bubble gum, but we're giving it our best shot here as we continue through our show here today. Phone lines are an interesting thing. I think we got them full at the moment. We're going to try back with those calls here in a minute. If you want to try to squeeze in, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Let me just say, in general, that I am more, and have proven myself, I feel, more than willing to talk about the serious issues, delve into them, and try to, if not reach consensus, at least discuss it as deeply as I feel we at least begin to need to. But I don't have a lot of time for the idea of, oh, this hurts the people I don't like, giddiness. Just the whole sticking it to insert political party or belief system I don't agree with here is not a good political goal. Like, sure, gives you a laugh and a giggle. I mean, do what you need to. But the idea of that being then like policy and law, I don't care which way it's coming from, is just more than a little bit caustic. Anyway, let's get back to those lines here. Again, that 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Well, it looks like the Inflation Reduction Act is on its way to Joe Biden's desk, or as I refer to him, President Palpatine.
Okay.
Yes. And what people need to realize is that this imposes a 15% minimum tax on large corporations.
Right.
For one, $6.5 billion tax on natural gas production, 16.4 cents. I don't know where they're going to find the other percentage of the pennies, but on petroleum-based products and crude oil. A $1.2 billion tax on coal, and then, of course, the 87,000 new IRS agents.
Right, that has been getting, it's all to call anything getting most of the headlines this week. I still kind of maintain my contention that things do seem to be not exactly moving faster, but a lot more stuff happening at once. And so it's been hard to pick out what has been the most talked about thing that week, because anything you've just mentioned has been kind of part of it here. The IRS out of the subset you talked about there, probably more, but I know at least some earlier in the week that I don't think we quite got to. The idea that there is going to be that 15% minimum tax, I kind of get it. The idea that we have all these tax loopholes, offshoring, et cetera, that and offshore bank accounts companies have been using. But the point that was made that I find myself agreeing with is that who do you think that 15% tax is going to come on? It's not going to come out of the bottom line of a company. If they've been charging what they've been charging, they're going to say, well, our costs have gone up, guys. Sorry, it's going to cost you 15% more, because it always always rolls downhill like some other substances I can't mention the name of do on air do downhill.
Yes, I agree. Well, remember, people, and of course, companies are in business to make a profit. They're not in business to lose. They need to. They have to answer to their investors. They have to answer to their stockholders. And wait and see. The companies like Walmart, Costco, and other big name Amazon. Sooner or later, they're going to have to either raise prices or cut hours or let people go.
Or maybe a combination of all therein, as has also happened. I mean, we're talking about, as we were yesterday, about some of those local economic risk factors and how we might slip into. I mean, sure, we've got economic contraction going on, but hiring still strong. A lot of contradictory factors, but they all start pointing downwards. Yeah, I think any debate will be removed on that point.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I agree. That's for the IRS agents. These guys are not your typical auditors. These are law enforcement category. When you see GS 1811, hey, folks, those are special agents of the IRS. They are gun-toting law enforcement agents and able to make arrests. And once you get arrested by the IRS, God help you, because they have the pocketbook of the federal treasury. You're going to lose your house. You're going to lose your savings and your pension and everything else that you've worked for all your life.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I have never had, knock on wood, and hope and never will do any particular issues like audits, anything coming from the IRS, but I will say I have a level of trepidation, even when it's been about the ironically fact that I will get the direct deposit of the tax return, and then I'll get a letter about 2 weeks later saying your tax return was not able to be deposited and will be sent to you by a check in the mail, and then I'll have already gotten it that way if it didn't make it to the direct deposit. Still, even knowing that it's just that notice, still have, kind of my heart in my throat whenever I'm just even receiving the communication. Never a fun thing to get a letter from the IRS.
No, and even if you're not guilty, okay, like I said, I'm all for law and order, but even if you're not guilty, it ain't going to be cheap to defend yourself, because essentially with the IRS, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent.
Yeah, and the fact, burden of proof, all those things, because it's definitely not a court. Yeah, there's a lot to be. It's very fraught. Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, and as for Frankie, hey, Frankie, you seem to call everybody a moron and uneducated. Well, let me tell you, I'll put my educational credentials up against yours or Raul's any day. So, like I said, I'm up for a debate any day, and I'm not gonna slur insults at anybody. Anyway, I turn the mic over to you, Andrew.
Appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there and a good weekend.
Thank you.
Appreciate it there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get back to that break right now. I know we've got calls on the line. We will get to your callers there, so if you're on the line, stay patient. If not, we appear to have some of those monkeys and wrenches and monkey wrenches working better in the background here, so if you want to call in, even if it does get a little bit full up there, Mondo Moncada saying IRS agents are the modern-day highwaymen. There's some debate and maybe truth to be had with that, but we'll get to take that break right now. If you wanted to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 news update. A gang riot inside a border prison that left 2 inmates dead quickly spread to the streets of Juarez. The federal government's security undersecretary says the violence started inside the state prison just after 1 p.m. yesterday when members of the Mexicals gang attacked members of the rival Chapos. 2 inmates were killed and 20 others were injured. Then suspected gang members outside the prison started burning businesses and shooting civilians in Juarez, including 4 employees of a radio station making a promotional occasional appearance at a business. 6 of the suspects were arrested at the Juarez airport this morning, where there was a shootout between the suspects and law enforcement. City leaders then took to social media to ask citizens of Juarez to not leave their homes. The show Chavos Rucos Viviendo de Noche, set to perform at the El Paso County Coliseum, has subsequently been canceled due to the recent crime in Juarez. The show was set for Saturday at 8 p.m. Anyone who purchased a ticket will receive a refund. I'm Iraca Castillo with your KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound at Hawkins Boulevard, an accident reported. On the 10 westbound, Schuster to Executive Center Boulevard, right lane is closed for some road work. That's continuing through the weekend. A crash reported Yarborough northbound north of the border highway at Valley View, and an injury accident still being worked by police. Wrestler Drive southbound at Pitt. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Mother Nature is cutting us some slack this weekend. What does that mean? That means drier air moving back in. Not completely dry, but we're getting close, with only an isolated chance for some showers and storms, not only tonight, but also through the start of next week. Just keep in mind that drier air translates to hotter temperatures as well. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
If you love being an American, then listen to the best storytelling podcast in the country, Red Pilled America, a weekly storytelling show that tackles the tough topics corporate media mocks. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
Have you thought about getting dental implants? Has someone told you that dental implants cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 per tooth? Please do not pay that much money. Instead, go to 1995implants.com, the El Paso dental office where beautiful, top-quality, long-lasting dental implants are as low as $1,995 per tooth, including the implant, abutment, and crown. Plus, we offer a free consultation with the dentist, free standard x-rays, and convenient financing plans to fit your budget. At 1995implants.com, dental implants are very affordable. So, get rid of your cracked teeth, missing teeth, and loose old wobbly dentures and get the amazing new smile that you've been wanting. 1995implants.com is conveniently located right here in El Paso. For more information, please see our website, 1995implants.com. That's 1995implants.com. Se habla español.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today. This report is sponsored by Allstate.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Dealing with a lot of issues and getting into a lot of technical ones as well here today, but feels like we're on track. Feels more like a free-for-all Friday than I was anticipating coming into the show anyway, with our kind of convoluted workaround. Seems to be working for the moment, but knock on wood, it continues. Phone line's full up at the moment, but if you want to squeeze on, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. One thing of things, it's maybe a finer point and maybe not quite as important, but there's been a list of events either canceled or impacted after that yesterday's spread of violence coming from Ciudad Juarez here, including stuff happening on this side of the border here. The opening of a Mexican-inspired art installation at the Chamizal National Memorial Cultural Center has now been canceled. The performance of the Chavos Rucos Viviendo de Noche performance at the El Paso County Coliseum has also been stopped. The FC soccer game against Pachuca also. Potentially more of them coming up here, so stay tuned with our news partners over there at KFOX 14 with that here. And a lot of comments coming in here about people's perspective and things, of course, entitled to that. I just got to say, the idea that, sure, there was the verbal promise of that, yes, the several dozen billion dollars we give to the IRS, including for the increasing amount of agents, would only be targeted at those making over $400,000. I'm going to need you to show me that where it actually says that, like in a law or in writing or in like policy, even, because right now it's essentially a promise from the agency that is also then going to be doing that action. So self-policing, another way to maybe put it here, and why I have a level of concern that comes for it, because sure, there has been a very amount of numbers, at least someone referencing Raul, I do believe, Francisco Amaya, the $1 trillion in uncollected taxes. I'm not saying that I would like that number to be there, but if you think it's solely from the 1 or the 0.1% that has that $1 trillion in unpaid, sure, I'm sure there's a lot of money there. But you don't think that's not going to come down into the average everyday person? Audits are probably not going to stay over the $400,000 level. I'm just going to call that as my expectation right now. But a whole lot more being talked about there, and a lot more commentary coming in here. Do get those emails as well. Thank you for that. Do appreciate it. But let's go back to those phone lines, squeeze in what we can before the end of the show. We do have Jim on the west side here with us right now. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon there.
Okay?
What's on your... Yeah, we hear you on the line fine. What's on your mind?
Okay, I've made some notes here. Thanks for taking my call, first of all. Raul just made an ass of himself. That's all I have to say about that. His words will speak for themselves. Frankie, the level of education and calling everybody morons, like the previous caller said, I'll put up my level of education against yours anytime, Frankie. And I'll also have a debate with you anytime, as well as Raul, just like the previous caller would. You don't even know our level of education, and you're just showing how ignorant you are by calling everybody morons. You know, I have a couple of graduate degrees, and I'll put that up against yours anytime. Anyway, slavery. Okay, slavery. One of the things I don't understand, Andrew, I never have since I got educated about slavery, was how a group of people that founded the KKK, that were all for slavery, that owned more slaves than any other political group, and that fought against the ending of slavery. And along comes Lincoln, and he frees, played a big role in freeing up the slaves as a Republican. And yet, it blows my mind how they could have the people that founded the KKK and the slavery movement and fought to keep slavery and own the most slaves, how they could get 80-90% of the Democratic vote. It blows my mind. But that's the way it is. I've never understood that. Trump versus Biden. Frankie says about the orange man bad thing.
Sure.
Trump derangement syndrome, just like Raul does. This is why I went for. I prefer Trump. He can put a couple of sentences together, unlike Biden for one thing. But the economy was great when he was there. We had more values and morals. As far as he wasn't for teaching kindergarteners about pornography and sex change and chop off their genitals and testicles. And he would have put a stop to that so fast. That's sick. That is sick. The abortion, of course, is a big, topic of contention. But here's the thing about abortion. When you look at the science, they always say, look at the science. You have someone in you that has a different DNA, has a heartbeat, and is moving around. That's a live person. I don't care what either. Now, if you don't think that's the case, I mean, I'm sorry, but you're ignorant. I mean, that's science. Okay, that's science. And so when you kill that little beating heart and moving around and stuff. I know that it's not an easy thing to do, but when you use it as birth control, that's sick. And Biden is for it. Trump was against it. And finally, on the Middle East, he did a lot for Israel. And Israel, me being a Christian, Israel is God's holy land in my book. And he did a lot for them, while Biden and Obama, did just the opposite. And for all those reasons, You say that only an idiot can go for Trump. No. There's a lot of reasons why we go for Trump, and we don't like pornography for kindergartners. We don't like the killing of innocent babies, and to be used as birth control just for the hell of it, and we don't like the economy. We don't like that 87,000 IRS agents. You think they're going to go after only the billionaires? There's only 760 of them. What are the other 86,200 and something going to do? Sit around? No, I think they're going to go after the middle class and the small businesses, just like they did under COVID. It's all part of the master plan, but that is about all I have to say, Andrew. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call there. Anytime it is, these kind of broad brushes are painted, I don't care what side the political spectrum is. It usually, of course, ends up being the people I don't like kind of conversation. There's they're all idiots. They're all stupid. How could they possibly think that way? To not understand, I mean, it's kind of it's not a very adult point of view here on it, the way that people can come to different conclusions than you and saying, well, clearly that means that they have no basis of understanding, or that they are, many words when come to mind there, because saying that, I mean, the infantilizing of it is almost insulting. It is insulting in a lot of ways. But I mean, on some of these things, I do have levels concerned with some of these rules, and definitely the differences between the two administrations has been pretty stark so far here. Let me just say this: when we talk about the abortion debate and what has come up with this, I do have a level of concern because, third trimester late term abortions, never exactly a good thing. And why? One of the things I think that comes down to it, the idea of fetal viability hasn't come up a whole lot lately, at very least not with the way state laws are being considered. And I almost wonder, some out there that I've heard about that maybe have been the standard that was going to be looked at by the Supreme Court. And I almost wonder if that would be a more reasonable one, because, and the way I put this there very carefully like that, is that when it comes to before that point and saying that any loss of pregnancy, I mean, abortion as birth control, that's never was, even in any standpoint, a smart idea. But if it comes down to criminalization of things such as miscarriages, which absolutely is a possibility and has already been pursued in some cases, I know it has been a minority, but I still have a various level of concern having known to love and have loved ones that are able to get pregnant. It has a level of concern that I'm going to be looking very closely at the laws that are being passed and being the debates going on along with this here. Let's get to at least one more call here. So appreciate the point in the call. Let's get at least one more call, if not a couple more. Squeeze in what we can. Here we do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. I have just one thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
Someone is calling in and insulting me personally by calling me names because I happen to follow this political philosophy or another or something like that. Is no way to win me over to that person's side.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to work. And I think that some of the callers need to take that into consideration before casting aspersions on everyone's education and upbringing and whatever. Because it doesn't work. If they really want to get me on their side, let's put the argument on the table. Let's discuss it. There was, in recent history, Ruth Bader Ginsburg had a good relationship with a senator, I believe he was, I can't remember his name, and they disagreed on everything, but they were civil to each other, and they talked about the issues, and they didn't insult each other. And I just wish that some of these callers would realize that for the good of themselves and for the good of the cause that they are espousing. Otherwise, they just turn us off, and there's no compromise, negotiation, or even talking to these people.
I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly and entirely. If there's there's a lot of big ideas that I keep in the back of my head as we go about in the production and the, creation and the persecution, maybe not the right way to put it, of this show. The way we go about it is that idea that, yelling, screaming at someone saying, you're an idiot, this is awful, I hate everything you stand for. Sure, there's maybe a level of catharsis there, but usefulness, I find to be very lacking in that way. I'm not necessarily out to convince anyone of everything, besides maybe to change the way they consider how they even debate and go about these things. There's one thing I hope people come away, the idea that, again, reasonable people can disagree and still acknowledge each other's ability to exist. Related to what you're talking about there, the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Antonin Scalia, complete opposite sides of the political spectrum when it comes to their philosophies and how they applied and did their bench work when it came to the Supreme Court, and yet we're famous friends and co-lovers of opera, among other things, even performed with one together alongside and friends outside of the courtroom.
Yes, I agree 100%. So thank you for putting me on, getting that point of view across, and I agree with you. Give me the issue, but keep it civil. Don't insult me. That's all I'm saying.
Fair.
Not you, about the callers. Thank you, Andrew.
The royal you, I get it there. Appreciate the point of the call. You have a good one there.
All righty.
Have a great weekend. All right, I think we're going to try to get at least one more in here. It's been a jam-packed day, and we've talked about a lot of issues here. We do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Hello there. Yes, this is Eric McNabb. Called a couple days ago.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about something related to that, but I'll change the topic because I know there's not much time
thank
for
you.
the next break. But on the issue of civility, it's really important to be civil and rational in these discussions and about policy matters because, people are going to live or die based on policies, either go broke or get rich or important policy matters are impacted by what we believe to be true, how we go about discussing these matters. And it's important to know where this incivility comes from because, you have Donald Trump, who is the president of the United States, who's trolling, gaslighting the American people. He goes on Alex Jones' show just spewing lies, gaslighting and trolling. And that's how a lot of people on the right, no, I don't want to go to the people right now specifically, because Donald Trump's political campaign paid people to troll, divide, and spread and engage in these discussions in bad faith. And so did Russia. Russia paid people to troll, to divide, to prevent logical discourse about politics in America. It's so important to know where this incivility and dividing is coming from.
I get kind of what you're saying there. I'm not saying I was a huge fan of the rhetorical style of the previous president there, but to call it the source of it and the reason it's up here recently, I'm not quite sure I follow you on that point of it. From my perspective, the way I look at it is, if you want, again, that kind of top down that I've been referring to here, the way that's been moving, I'm going to point to that going back, to the 90s, to be honest with you, with this whole all or nothing kind of reasoning coming out of the national legislature. Because, unfortunately, as much as people should be able to have discussions, talk about things, and do it, what they see their elected officials and then, say, leadership, speakers of the House kind of things doing, they end up saying, oh, that therefore is acceptable, which is why the burden of how we talk about these things on those in high office is even greater than anyone else. But also one of the reasons when it comes to politicians, we tend to focus on their policies because rhetorical style I may have issues with, but how they're actually going to implement it and what they're doing about it ends up being the primary focus to me. So it's certainly entitled to your opinion on what you think the locus of that is. But if anything, even if you're saying, again, because I'm not totally saying that the way that it was talked about and some of the choices of statements are ones that I would have repeated by any means from the former president, but calling it as the sole source of it and rather maybe a symptom of the way things have been going. It's not exactly if this was, man, no one has ever talked that way before, rather telling it like it is, those kind of things here. I think it's more of a symptom than a true cause there. Of course, entitled to your opinion here. We got to take that next break right now. I appreciate the point and the call. We just got to hit that so we can hit the end of the show here and not get me in trouble with our bosses here for not getting those ads. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Meadow Mount Contest saying we love Free for All Fridays. I look forward to it, even if it's one of our more interesting days of the week and has been technically there. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back in a minute.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Joe Battle Boulevard, southbound at Pebble Hills, an accident there is blocking the right turn lane. Gateway Boulevard, eastbound at Sumac, an injury accident with EMS on the scene. North Desert Boulevard, northbound at Vinton, a stalled vehicles blocking the center lane there. And Gateway South at East Yandell still closed through the weekend from that sinkhole repair. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Two titans in the finance space just combined forces, and it's massive news. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. So listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean. Mike, gotta go.
Eee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
Here's football legend Howie Long for Skechers hands-free slip-in footwear.
The world has gone hands-free, using the phone, turning on your lights, heck, even driving. However, if you want to put on a pair of sneakers, you still need to bend down and help your feet in. Until now. Introducing Skechers hands-free slip-in footwear. Let me tell you, these things are amazing. You don't need to lace up, and they're even better than your standard slip-on sneakers. This is next-level slip-in technology, where you don't need to reach down and help your heel in. You just step in, and off you go. It's that easy. So what's the secret? There's a special smooth comfort pillow in the heel that helps your foot slide into place, and also keeps your feet secure in heavenly comfort, which means they stay on just like a pair of laced-up sneakers. And you can even slip into them while you're sitting down. Make your life easier and go hands-free with Skechers' new hands-free slip-in footwear. You'll never have to struggle putting on your shoes again.
Get hands-free slip-ins for the whole family at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
My mom and dad are the best. Ever since they called the early childhood program, I'm doing so much better, and mom and dad don't worry or stress as much as they used to. They seem a bazillion times happier, and all services are free.
Parenting isn't easy, so we signed up for the free early childhood program at the El Paso Center for Children. They taught us how to deal with COVID-19 stress and be better parents. Lots of other free services are available. Call 915-500-4105. That's 500-4105.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, Eric live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am very happy we've made it through the show more or less intact and able to say we are able to take calls. Let me just tell you, pulling back the curtain here a little bit, it was not at all guaranteed calls were going to work today at any point, which is why we, at the start of the show, mentioned some of those other methods we're going to try. Seems to have worked out. We're going to continue working on it for you because us being here, I mean, it is my mission to have live local talk radio here in the borderland because A, I think we deserve it. B, I think we need it. And if I'm the person that is able to do it, well, I find myself very luckily and privileged to be in that position here. We've covered a lot of ground here today, but as much as the civility has come up, yes, there are some things that are worth arguing and getting in depth on about, such as, those inalienable human rights, very basic human dignity, things like that. But in other ways, I mean, sure, it may seem academic at times, but talking about it and being able to have that discussion about it, as it is an increasing lost art, we're going to keep pushing back on that concept and not being able to talk about things because doing that is one of the things I don't think social media, as much as we're on them, yes, I recognize fully we're on social media in order to get out there, but doing it the way we're trying to, I'm hoping we can continue to do that, and that's what we will focus on as we do every Monday through Friday. So let me give you a little bit of homework to talk to someone in your real life about it as much as possible. If the issue is important to you, and to do so civilly. I know the idea of actually talking with someone may be feeling a foreign idea in these days, but as much as you can, I mean, we got the weekend coming up. Take your time, do what is right for you, and, do what is at a certain point relaxing. I mean, take the time if you need to, but try to have some of these important conversations in your real life, because that is where I think the work will really come, and why I still say voting matters, and I'm going to die on that hill as much as I need to, because that's the very basic level of what it takes for this. And we'll continue focusing on that. A lot more coming up for you next week on some of these subjects, including some art projects. Yes, I know we'll draw off the mural crowd on that one, but also some of these petitions and a whole lot more. So thank you all very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk, as I will be every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. next week. So everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, seriously, that participation will make this show both interesting and possible, and why I want to keep doing it. So stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A reported crash I-10 eastbound at Hawkins Boulevard is slowing traffic. That's at Piedras with a 6-minute delay. Gateway Boulevard eastbound at Sumac, an injury accident. A crash Joe Battle Boulevard southbound at Pebble Hills has got the right turn lane blocked. And watch for an injury accident slowing traffic Zaragoza at Tierra Este. Take Sunfire or Pebble Hills to get around it. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
For more than 20 years, the Window Depot has provided the best price and the biggest inventory on in-stock vinyl windows. And now the Window Depot is more than a window store, offering homeowners and contractors a one-stop warehouse full of interior and exterior doors, granite and quartz countertops, in-stock cabinetry, and flooring and tile to finish your project. Their team of professionals will help with everything from pre-kitchen design to custom orders from leading manufacturers like Milgard and Geldwin. Order online or find a location near you at thewindowdepot.com.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The search warrant behind the FBI raid on former President Trump's home is now unsealed. White House correspondent John Decker talks about the contents the DOJ allegedly found.
20 boxes in particular, binders of photos, and also something that they label information on the president of France.
The warrant claims Trump was under investigation for potential Espionage Act violations. The House is sending a bill called the Inflation Reduction Act to President Biden's desk. Democrats pushed the bill through after it narrowly passed the Senate last weekend. During debate on the House floor, Democrat Mark Pocan of Wisconsin said his party is putting people over politics with the bill. Republican Michael Burgess of Texas insisted it won't have much of an impact.